Some major news out of New York that should set off blinking red lights for Republicans. Democrat Sam Sutton just won a special election for New York State Senate District 22, a district that Donald Trump won by 55 points this past November. This is a district where Trump got 77% of the vote just 6 months ago. And yet, when voters had the chance to send a Republican to the state Senate from that district, they chose the Democrat by an almost 2-to-1 margin. That is an 89-point swing from red to blue in a matter of months. Just to put things into perspective here, if we saw a similar swing in every state, the Democrats would win every seat in the House, every seat in the Senate, and every seat in the Electoral College. Now that, of course, won't happen, but the swing from red to blue here is still worth talking about. And this comes just days after Democrat John Ewing Jr. pulled off a stunning upset victory in the Omaha mayoral race in Nebraska, defeating three-term Republican incumbent Gene Stothert, flipping a seat from red to blue, and marking the first time a Democrat has been elected mayor of Omaha since 2009. That was the third Democratic flip since November of 2024, but as we've seen so much throughout the country, Trump has dragged down the Republican Party like a human anchor, and this is the result. Hell, it's not even limited to our own country. If you're a conservative anywhere in the world, chances are your tangential relationship to Donald Trump will mean that you're going to lose an election, as was the case in Romania, Canada, and Australia in just the last couple of weeks. When I say that there is no place on earth where you're safe from any affiliation with Trump, I'm not kidding. Here's Canada's Mark Carney making it very clear where he stands on the issue of Trump.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen.
And just like in Canada, here's Australia's Anthony Albanese calling out Trump over the trade war.
But the Australian people have every right to view this action by the Trump administration as undermining our free and fair trading relationship and counter to the shared values that have always been at the heart of our two nations' long-standing friendship. This will have consequences for how Australians see this relationship. These are uncertain times. But Australians can be absolutely certain of this. Our government will always stand up for Australian jobs, Australian industry, Australian consumers, and Australian values.
And as I mentioned before, it's not even limited to the English-speaking world. In Romania, just days ago, pro-EU centrist Nicu Jordan defeated far-right Trump fan George Simion in the Romanian presidential runoff election. This was a massive rejection of Trump-style nationalism in a country that was supposedly trending far to the right. Simion was literally running around calling himself a MAGA president and pledging to make Romania a strong ally of the United States. He even told reporters, "We are a Trumpist party which will govern in Romania." Simion followed the Trump playbook to a T. He was running on a platform of ending military aid to Ukraine and criticized the European Union's leadership. He promoted conspiracy theories, stoked fear about immigrants, and claimed he would restore democracy, all while planning to appoint an ultranationalist as prime minister. Any of that sound familiar? Of course, now Romania, Canada, and Australia's conservatives can join American conservatives, all of whom have sat idly by as Trump unilaterally destroyed their own election prospects. Since Trump took office, where he demanded total fealty from his party and then went on to tank the stock market, the economy, 401ks, consumer confidence, and surge costs, now the rest of his own party here in the United States is forced to bear the political burden of that. And the electoral consequences have been beyond apparent. Just a few weeks ago, the two Republican candidates in Florida's special elections underperformed by 16 points and 22 points from the party's 2024 margin. In Wisconsin, liberal Supreme Court Justice nominee Susan Crawford overperformed the 2024 presidential election contest by 11 points in that 50-50 swing state en route to her victory there. In Pennsylvania, Democrats overperformed by 15 points and 17 points in two state legislative seats en route to victories there, one of which solidified Democratic control of the Pennsylvania State House, and the other of which flipped a seat from red to blue. Across the United States, of the almost 24 races held since Election Day, Democrats are seeing an 11.5-point swing to the left, with 3 of those races seeing Democrats flip seats formerly held by Republicans. In other words, we are seeing both domestic and international backlash to Trump's erratic style of governance. And if all of this feels remarkably similar to what we saw in 2017, You'd be right. Back in 2017, when they tried to attack the ACA, and that led to the biggest ouster of Republicans in the House in modern American history, flipping 41 seats to Democratic control. And so have you heard from any of your Republican colleagues about the massive blinking red light that they are ushering in right now by virtue of doing this?
They certainly are increasingly of the view that this is a legislative train wreck that is going to turn into a political train wreck. Now, they haven't had the courage to say that out loud. But the reality is they are nervous and concerned. It's one of the reasons why they actually are going to have a Rules Committee hearing to advance the GOP tax scam at 1 a.m. in the morning. This is unprecedented.
Famously doing it at 1 a.m. so that the most people can watch.
That's absolutely correct. So we're going to lean in aggressively. Perhaps they were of the view that Democrats are not going to show up. We're going to be there. In force, in fact, will be there in greater numbers than perhaps would otherwise have been the case, to make it clear that we're going to forcefully push back on behalf of the American people. I think the votes aren't completely there yet. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump came to Capitol Hill.
Right.
Because he knows that there are challenges, including amongst some so-called swing seat Republicans who go home and they pretend to be moderate, go on TV and pretend to be moderate, but try to hide their votes in Washington, D.C., where they vote with the extreme MAGA Republicans. But this time, they know that the people are watching, particularly as it relates to how they might vote on health care, on Medicaid, on nutritional assistance to children, veterans, and seniors.
After Trump's shock victory back in 2016, Democrats began outperforming expectations in special elections across the country. They flipped a state Senate seat in Delaware by 16 points. They won a state House seat in New Hampshire that had been in Republican control for 30 years. In Virginia, they came within a hair of taking control of the House of Delegates, picking up 15 seats when most analysts had predicted that they would gain only 5 or 6. And what happened after all of that? The 2018 midterm cycle saw Democrats flip a staggering 41 House seats by the biggest margin in modern American history and take back the majority for the first time in 8 years. I'm not saying any of this to make you complacent, quite the opposite. I am saying this to show you that even when it feels like the chips are down and hope is lost, that we can win. It doesn't mean that it won't take work and organizing and volunteering and donating and door knocking and canvassing and messaging and figuring out our own brand problems, but the environment is obviously favorable for Democrats. Our job is to capitalize on it right now. There's plenty of work to do, but so far it's paying off. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.